then, Nick?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Yeah. Just been working flat out on this website, as I was saying. So it's nice to have a break and talk to a human being, even if it is online.
Yeah, well, I'm almost a human being,
Yeah,
so,
so am I at the
so
moment. Yeah,
I feel
quite
kind of
quite
half my usual.
diminished. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, half my usual self. I'm absolutely shattered at the moment. So I had to get up really early for an appointment with a cardiologist at 9, the other side of Krakow. So
Oh, blimey.
I had to get up at 7, which is only half an hour earlier than usual, but that extra half hour makes a big difference. Clearly,
I'm normally up way earlier than that.
are you?
I'm one of them people who wakes up at 4 o'clock, no matter what time I go to
No.
bed. Yeah.
Oh my god. So does that mean
Yeah.
you're straight at it then? Are you like working
Not always. Sometimes I am. Yeah. Sometimes you'll get an email from me sent at 4:10. you
right?
know. But yeah, I try and pace it. I try not to turn any computers or phones on for an hour or two.
Oh, okay. So if you're up
But
so early, what do
yeah,
you do? I mean, we've got a dog. You're not out walking the dog or anything, are you?
no, but I'd like to get a dog. I've been thinking about it for a while. Funny enough, yeah,
Have you? What kind?
yeah, something small enough. My flat's quite small, and I'm on the third floor, so
Hmm.
I'd want something fairly small. And portable, but I don't know. I like the idea of maybe a border terrier or something like
Yeah,
that.
okay, nice.
But
Yeah,
apparently they need quite a lot of training, and I'm new to all of this, so I don't want to. I want to
right.
get an easy one. You know,
Yeah.
I think
No.
what I want is the temperament of a greyhound, but smaller. You know.
Okay, good.
So if you
Good
got
luck
if you
with
got
that
any
quest.
recommendations, yeah,
I'm not really an expert on dogs, so
right,
our dog
right.
is a Springer Spaniel, English Springer, and oh, she's between her and a three and a half, almost 4 year old daughter. It's it's
You
another
got your
reason
hands
why
full.
I'm yeah, it's another reason why I'm in a zombie state most of the time.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I can
but
understand
yeah,
that.
I can't recommend anything dog wise. Not that meets your requirements. Um, but obviously, we're here to talk a little about your label, Horn of Plenty, and what you're trying to do with Central Bazaar. And we'll
Mm,
talk about some of the crap that we're up against in our little corners of the music world, our tiny sort of
yeah.
corners. But what's, I've only been aware of your label, Horn of Plenty, for what, 2, 3 years maybe, and we started doing some trades. So I've got a few of your releases. I haven't got everything, of course, um, but I'm aware of the fact that you're quite into going by some of the releases that I've procured from our trades. Eyes of the Amaryllis, Idea Fire Company, who I was familiar with before from Swill
Mhm.
Radio. Who else? Little Skull, a couple of other things. It's quite, dare I say, avant-garde, lo-fi, avant-garde, esoteric kind of music.
Yeah. That's
Where's
fair
your
enough.
interest in that kind of music come from? Before we go onto the label,
To me, it's a pretty. We're people of a certain age, and it's a pretty natural fit. It's post punk, really, isn't it?
mm,
That post punk thing kind of uh, had arrows leading off in lots of different directions, and a lot of it was all about sort of DIY. That punk ethos, but then it would point towards the avant-garde and towards dance music and what that was kind of doing at that time.
yeah,
The electronic sort of side of things. It would hint at songs and more abstract stuff, and just everything that kind of was around in that sort of late 70s, early 80s period, really.
yeah,
Which a lot of us are still kind of obsessed with, whether or not it's about reissuing stuff or collecting stuff from that period, or just the fallout from that period, which continues to this day, I suppose.
yeah,
I'm not someone who wants to sort of stay in the past too much, but that's the roots of my. That's when I started buying records. That's when I started taking music far too seriously, and
mm,
so that's hopefully that's the answer to your question.
yeah. So I can appreciate, that we've got a similar kind of background, and you're absolutely right. This kind of post-punk heyday, the wilderness that was the late 70s, early 80s. It produced lots of music that went in all kinds of different directions, and as you said, electronic music, avant-garde, improv, all the rest of it. There was all this crossover stuff going on that certain
Yeah,
artists even, were very good at doing. I always think of Mark Perry here, he springs to mind, and The Door and the
sure.
Window, and, stuff like this. And many other examples as well. But obviously your label, moving on to the label Horn of Plenty, you started that, and I'm just thinking about my research, in 2018, is that right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
first
That was the first
release,
release.
yeah,
No,
but
2018 was the first release, but so before that, I had a label that had two releases on it.
mm,
2012-ish, I had a label called Vitelli, and I did an LP by a friend of mine called Ian Rawes, who had a project called the London Sound Survey.
mm,
Um, and so I started that label to do an LP by him.
okay,
And he basically had this website that catalogued field recordings of London. He
mm,
worked at the British Library Sound Archive.
okay,
And so I started the label to do that LP by him. And I'd been talking to him for 2 or 3 years. We were old friends, and I'd been talking to him for a few years about doing this release. And at first, he wasn't interested. He just wanted it to be an online resource. He didn't see it as an art project or anything like that. And I kind of chipped away at him, and he gave in, and he said, "Well, you compile it and do the LP."
mm,
Um, and when it came to putting it all together, once he agreed to the tracks, Graham Lampkin agreed to do the mastering for me. And that came out. And around about that time, a friend of mine in Australia, Matthew Hopkins, had just done this tiny little CDR that I'm not sure who had it. Someone here bought some. Who was that guy in Bristol that had a mail order for a little while? I think it was him. Is his name Kurt or something? Do you
which
know the fella I'm
was
talking
that
about?
part of the flying saucer attack? Was that
Oh,
Bristol?
maybe. Well, he used to run it out of his garage or spare room or
I,
something. There was a fella in Bristol. I can't remember. Infinite Limits.
yeah,
Do you remember him? I
yeah,
think he bought a handful of these CDRs anyway, and he said
okay.
to Matthew, "Oh, this is really good. Can I put it out on vinyl?" And he said, "Well, actually, I'm going to start recording some stuff. I've got a week off. I'm going to record some new stuff. How about I play you that? And if you're interested in that, do that." So that became the second release on
Okay.
Vitelli. Um, and at that time, an old friend of mine died suddenly,
Mm,
committed suicide, and
oh,
he was someone who I knew from the sort of squat scene in the 80s. Him and another guy were in this band called the Mudguards, and I'd had these cassettes from that time for years, and always sort of banged on about we should do something with this stuff, and never got round to it.
mm,
Anyway, so then when Reg died, I spoke to Martin, the other guy from the band, and we agreed, okay, yeah, now's the time to do that LP. And that was kind of the kiss of death, really, because the minute we started on it, both of us just had all sorts of shit like illness, family problems, domestic issues. Oh, like the
yeah,
whole fucking
usual.
thing. Just everything
It's
just went
always the
wrong
way,
for a
isn't it?
few
It just
years.
happens at
Yeah.
the same time.
So by the time that record came out, it was getting on for 2018.
Yeah.
And by then, I just sort of thought, oh, let's start a new label, new name, new beginning. So that was, so the first Horn of Plenty release was really the third Vitelli release, if you like.
I see. Okay.
And then
So,
if you look at those first three releases, one was a contemporary LP of field recordings, one was a contemporary electronic, electroacoustic lo-fi record from Australia, and
yeah.
the other one was a archival, unreleased mid-80s post-punk electronic industrial stuff.
Yeah, it's quite a
So
diverse
that was
selection.
it was setting out the stall really there and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And it follows on from what we were just discussing, the idea of this kind of post-punk inspired, type of
Yeah, yeah.
music going into these areas. It's quite, I would, going by again, the few releases I've got from Horn of Plenty, it's quite a diverse label, but there seems to be a certain aesthetic to the music. Would
Well, I'm
you
glad
go
you
along?
see that. Yeah,
Yeah. Would
yeah,
you?
yeah. I'm quite conscious of that, and I'm pushing for it. I don't know how well it comes across, and I
Oh,
suppose it really matters that much. But yeah, I'm
well,
conscious
obviously
of
it
it.
matters to you, and
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's. I'm not a musician. I've tried at various points, and I don't really think I've got. I think again, starting the label was my way of saying to myself, just forget making music. You're better at kind of putting stuff together and making those connections and putting things in front of people. I've sort of been that guy all my life, really. From when I was a teenager, I'd be the
okay.
one who had a load of records or who made mixtapes or that sort of thing. So it's always what I've been better at, really. And
Yeah.
so I kind of see the label as, I don't know, sort of like a DJ set in slow motion or something like
Right.
that. Just one
Okay.
one release at a time, and there's a thread, but there's maybe some surprises and something. Yeah, there's something personal in it for me as well.
Yeah, of course. I think that's an important factor in running a label anyway. Obviously, what I do is very different. I would say my net is a little broader. Not in terms of um, um, the sensibilities behind the artist, but you've definitely got this kind of lo-fi avant, as you said, electroacoustic and kind of bedroom basement feel
Hmm.
to a lot of the releases, which I think works in its favour with what you're doing. There's definitely an atmosphere there behind all of the releases, whereas I wouldn't say I've got that with Plagne, but um, I had a question brewing then. Yeah, well, uh, obviously you mentioned the fact you'd already been um, running. Oh, you've done a few two, three releases before Horn of Plenty. And I know from our previous discussions, because we've had a few discussions in the last few months, that you also have. You said you're not a musician. You never really. I don't know if I've got this wrong. You never aspired to be a musician. Um,
I had the odd moment where I felt I had something
okay.
to say, and so I'd buy a bit of kit or a few bits of
Oh,
kit and play
okay.
around, and
Okay.
yeah, no, I did in the 80s. I was in a sort of noisy electronic band that we did a
Oh,
few
okay.
sort of local gigs, nothing special. I played drum machine and angle grinder
No, right. Sounds
and
interesting.
a battered out of tune acoustic guitar on one track and with a wooden spoon. That kind of
Okay.
that was part of the whole sort of Mudguards type thing.
Yeah, okay. So, but I know from our previous discussions, you do have more of a background in music. You've worked. I did you tell me once that you've worked in distribution and you've worked for Resonance FM. So you've
Yeah.
got quite a strong pedigree
Yeah, I've
here.
mostly been around music. That's mostly what I've done for a living. Um, Yeah, I started at Rough Trade, mid-80s, went to
Okay,
Caroline, which was, for anyone who doesn't know, was basically Virgin Records distribution
that's
company. It
right.
was run by Virgin Records, and it was massive.
Oh yeah.
Huge sort of superstore size warehouse out at North Acton.
Mhm.
And that all collapsed late 90s. And then I got involved with Resonance, and then from there ended up sort of doing radio production and teaching radio production and sound editing and things like that
Okay.
up until the time that Horn of Plenty started, basically.
Mm.
And then I did sort of odds and sods on the freelance sort of circuit, until
Okay.
COVID pretty much killed that stuff off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've been around records all my life.
Yeah. So do
And
you
and
still?
again, to go back to sort of what Horn of Plenty is about, it's probably the same as most people who run labels. It's about making the records that you want to buy. I'm my
Yeah,
own customer, sort of thing.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that if you're not doing it for that reason, I think you're doing it for the wrong reason.
yeah, exactly. Well,
So
especially with this kind of music, because you're not going to earn any money off it, are
no,
you?
no,
So
no. But this is another thing I wanted to get to as well because I do. I mean, it's a tiny amount, but I do have some loyal supporters of what I do, and you have the same as well, supporting what you
Oh
do in
yeah,
Horn.
yeah,
Right? They'll buy everything. They support
yeah.
the label because I noticed when I look at your releases on Discogs, for example, that they're for such a again esoteric kind of releases. You know, very obscure releases. I'd never heard of something. Obviously, IDFI company I was familiar with. Eyes of Amaryllis, never heard of them before. You know, before you put out their records. Little Skull, likewise. Um, so, how how are you getting the? You know, how are you promoting your label to get this audience to what you're doing? Because I don't think you've got a huge like online presence, have you? You're one of the another one of
No,
these people that doesn't really dabble much with social media and what
no.
have you.
I
So
had a Horn of Plenty Instagram account.
yeah,
I keep that stuff at arm's length, and I suppose we can talk a bit more about that in a minute with the Central Bazaar stuff. But no,
mm,
I've kept it pretty low profile. I think there's 3,500 followers of that account. Um,
that's quite pretty
I think really,
substantial.
there's quite a lot of online record shops now, and I've probably bought records from all the places that stock my records, and so they kind of know me by, from that mail order thing if they don't know me personally anyway. And so I
Mm,
guess I send them stuff, and some of them do pretty good reviews rather than just copy the blurb I've written.
yeah,
And so word gets out that way because they're on social media or whatever. There's a few radio shows and stations and things like that. The artists giving it a push online, and
yeah,
the rest kind of hoping for the best. Really, it's sort of partly conscious. I never didn't want to have a sort of marketing department and a media cycle and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I can't pretend I don't make an effort. I'd be a bit of a wanky label runner to sort of convince an artist to give me their work and then say, but I'm not going to bother trying to sell it. So you
no,
you try and tread this line, don't you, where you
yeah,
you
yeah, of
try not
course,
to feel that you're selling out too much, but at the same time you want to do the right thing.
yeah, absolutely. That's fair enough. So obviously, your interest in this kind of music goes beyond Horn of Plenty as well. You just mentioned Central Bazaar, and this is a mail order and distribution company you've set up. How's it going at the moment? Because I know you're still in the
Um,
early days, but
yeah, well, it's so just over 2 years old,
mm,
and depending on what time of day you catch me or ask me that question, I can tell you it's really promising or it's on the ropes. Because
yeah,
it's kind of both at the same time.
mm,
Um, I started Central Bazaar because COVID, probably the same for you and any other sort of label types that are listening to this would agree that the COVID, we had this initial wave where everyone had a bit of money and was sitting around at home and was buying records. And the first sort of COVID year was pretty good
mm,
for us. And then it slowly started to go downhill. And once Brexit really kicked was that the beginning of 22 or, um,
I
when the
21 or
shipping,
22, yeah,
I don't remember exactly, but when that finally kicked in properly,
yeah,
I remember that being almost overnight. Everyone was like, "What? Hold on, what's going on here?" But no
that's
one's
right,
ordering anything.
yeah,
So there was this sort of few months period where everyone was sort of confused. A few were giving up and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And I remember there was a guy called Digital Regress, Ronnie Langford, a guy in California that does a mail order from home, and his newsletter came through, and he took one of my new releases. I don't remember what it was at that time, but I noticed that on his newsletter he had 4 or 5 different UK releases. And I spoke to him and said, Ronnie, have you ordered all of these individually? And he said, yeah. And I thought about it and I thought, well, if he's having to pay these ridiculous shipping rates
yeah,
for 4 or 5 titles, then thinking back to when I was in distribution years ago, it would make sense if he could place one order and get all that stuff together. And so the idea for distribution started to come back to me. And I remembered, obviously Rough Trade was part of the cartel when I was involved there.
Yeah.
And so that kind of collective thinking, and I got carried away with that idea again, and started to think that, maybe if we could sort of, if if the powers that be are taking us back to having that big world again, where everything's divided into territories and all that kind of stuff, then all right, well, maybe we can't press, yours and my label can't do a US pressing and an EU pressing. We're not ECM or whatever, but
Yeah.
that was the model in those days. Maybe at least one distribution company that puts all these things together might make it a bit easier for shops
Mm.
to place orders. So that was the sort of impetus to start it, really.
Okay.
And it seemed to work. And for the last almost 2.5 years, I've been doing that with no website, just with sort of Gmail and then a bit of inventory software and spreadsheets, which I'm pretty shit at using, and and a flat full of boxes of records.
Right.
And it's kind of gone all right. Now, obviously, this last year, business has been hard, because records aren't selling as well as they used to, and that's not just in the Central Bazaar world.
No, no,
It's
no. You're absolutely right.
everyone's struggling, whether it's cargo or Forte
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
rough trade, the shops now, even though they're bear no relation to what we remember. Um, these records are now harder things to sell.
yeah.
And Trump's tariffs and all the other
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's
geopolitical
just kicked in,
nonsense are
hasn't it?
making
Yeah,
it
yeah,
really hard.
yeah.
So I'm in a situation now where I've basically spent most of this year working on building a website for Central Bazaar to
Mm.
make it both retail and wholesale, and mainly to make it so that customers pay up front, because I'm owed a lot of money. And this is why I say that it's both successful and on the ropes, because
Of course.
there's a lot of shops that have ordered records from me sometimes a year ago, haven't paid
Yeah.
me. I can't pass that on to the labels because I work with small labels. I operate a monthly payout system as opposed to a quarterly payout
Mm.
system. And when that works, it's great. It means that, the money's moving around quickly, so the labels can get their money back. They can put more things in production. That comes back to me, and it
Yeah,
feeds
yeah,
the
yeah.
ecosystem,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but of course, no one's got any money now. I don't think it's necessarily sort of bad faith necessarily. It's just people in trouble financially,
I
so
think it's
they're not
cost of
paying their
living, isn't it?
bills.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So they're
yeah.
not paying their bills. That's hitting me. I can't pay the labels. They can't put stuff in production, etc.
It's the usual
So
story. Yeah, yeah,
my sort of thinking at the moment is, well, I've got this far with the website. Hopefully, in the next week or two, that's going to be live. I can sell what's on there, and going forward, I think again, all I can really do is go back to when I got involved in this scene in the 80s. Um, More products but smaller runs,
yeah.
seems to me to be the way, A, to where the markup can work, and B, you keep stuff moving around. There's stuff happening.
Yeah. You're
The
thinking,
idea of selling 1,000 LPs of the sort of things that we do these
yeah,
days
yeah.
is that's gone for a while. Probably for the time
Absolutely.
that me and you will be in this game.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right, and that's kind of where I'm at the well as well. I'm now thinking the way forward for me is to just do 150 LPs. Um, the
Yeah,
Richard
I think
Young's
for
one.
your Richard Youngs, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I've
Yeah,
got another
the Nick
one
Mott.
coming. Yeah, Nip Mart. I'm
Yeah.
doing a subscription series. Well, I'm still working away at this idea, but that'll all be 150. 150 quantity LPs, Base Communion, Ear Apex, um, Reverse Image. Yeah, and I'm still finalising the other three entries. But I do think that's the
What's
best
the
way of.
Irapex? Is that an old thing or a new thing?
No, he's going to do a new thing for me.
Ah, I didn't know he was
Yeah.
still doing stuff.
Yeah, he said that he'll do something, but I need to wait. But that's what everybody's saying at the moment. So
Yeah, yeah.
the only person who's got something ready for me is Base Communion. That's as
Okay.
soon as I mention the idea, yeah, here you go. So,
Nice.
yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to negotiate, who might be the last three entries in this series. But again, to go back to the point behind that, I like the idea of, well, it's not that I like the idea of selling as many records as possible, but it, because we're in these kind of turbulent times at the moment, I think this is the only way forward. It's back to kind of
The only
grassroots
idea I've
level.
got.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
DIY.
there's an inherent problem in it as well, because I think, without, getting on my sort of high horse too much, we're in the grips of neoliberalism now, aren't we? And
Yeah,
we're all fucking individuals, and youngsters in particular, I think, have been seduced by the idea that they can use a laptop to make some music, upload it to SoundCloud or Bandcamp, or cut the middleman out all the way along, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite a seductive idea, and it sort of works, but it sort of doesn't work as well, because just because you can do it doesn't mean that the world's getting it. It
No,
doesn't mean that everyone's just sitting there waiting for this, you know, alert to come through on their phone to say
that's
that
true.
someone's done something. What they need is part of that sort of system around it, that does newsletters, that writes about it, that plays it and broadcasts it and promotes it and all that kind of stuff. And I think there is some room for that. So I know that some of the artists and small labels that I've spoken to about working with on Central Bazaar, I can sort of tell even through their emails, but I like to try and talk to people on the phone if I can. I can
Mm.
kind of tell that they're a bit suspicious of me, like, who's he? What's he saying? Send me 100 LPs and I'll sell them for you and pay you later, sort of thing. And I get it, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
but you know, um, it's a harder sell nowadays than I guess it was a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I want to go back to your point about how easy it is for people to make music now, and I I do think that's obviously had an impact on what we're discussing. Right, regarding the likes of us and what we're doing with our labels, and for a few years now, people have even on this scale have been saying, what's the point of a label like this? And I've been prodding away at that question for a number of years. I do think there is a point, and I think it relates partly to something else we just said, and that's the fact that I work with a lot of artists who don't have much of an online presence, and sorry, I've just got the alert that we've only got 10 minutes left. So I might have to do the usual in a few minutes. And if you're happy, we can have a little
Hang
break
up
and
and
then.
call back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I'm not going to pay for the upgrade on Zoom.
No, fair
So
enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I don't use it enough for that. But anyway, I, I wondered if that's something you've been pontificating as well. The idea of uh, validating validating your role, as a label as well. Do you
Yeah.
do you do you think? Well, I'm sure it's a question you turn to as well. Do you sometimes think, what am I doing, and what's the reason behind this? Do you keep, and do you think doing what you do? Of course, I'm going to say, what you do is perfectly justified, the same as what I do is. But do you sometimes think there is an argument to be made against what we're doing when people are saying,
Yeah, of course. I
artists
can
don't
see
need
us.
us,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I could. We'll probably hit that 10-minute limit if we're not careful now. But
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right. So basically, I mean, there's some artists that I've worked with, who sort of. I tend to work with quite a few artists that doing their first vinyl release, for example, or maybe their
mm,
first release at all. And sometimes they can get that rush of blood to their head, and after their first release comes out, they hit me a fortnight later with something else, and and I have to sort of say, yeah, this is great, but just hang on a little while, give it 18 months or whatever. We don't
yeah,
need all your stuff to come out now, So
yeah,
there's some
yeah.
truth in that, as a record buyer, I don't want to buy three LPs by the same artist in the space of 18 months,
No, of course.
It's nice to have a bit of space, a bit of distance. It's nice for the artist to take a bit of time and all the rest of it. I do consider the environmental impact of pressing loads of records up if they ultimately are just going to end up in landfill in the next 10, 20, 30 years,
Mm,
whatever, or shorter. So I'm tighter on the idea of now of I'll take my time before agreeing to do something. And
Okay.
I'll have some sort of internal checklist of, does this need to exist? And maybe as a slight aside as well, I'd say that I actually sort of, what am I, 30 something releases into the label now, and I do sometimes think, well, maybe the identity of the label, maybe people have, even though I've really tried hard to throw sort of curveballs at anyone who thinks they know what the label is too much, or that it can become too predictable.
Mm.
I think sometimes some people do. I know that there's been a couple of sort of online comments or shops that have sort of said, oh, the label that does avant folk, and I sort of felt like, what? Just because I've done a couple of avant folk
Yeah,
records
yeah.
doesn't mean it's an avant,
No,
and the
no, I know
teenager
there's
in
more to
me,
it than that. Yeah.
yeah, the teenager in me kind of bristles at that and thinks, right, fuck it, I'm going to rip it all up, and
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I'm gonna sulk and never release another record under that name again, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do. There is a sort of healthy self-sabotage in me still that would quite happily just rip it all up and forget about it and come up with another idea at some point in the future. It doesn't, as much as I'm invested in it, it can stop tomorrow. Really, it's not. You know, it's
Okay.
not. It's not that crucial to me.
Oh, right. Okay. You're not that prolific as a label, right now, are you? As well, you're.
Fits and starts. No, I've had a quiet year because there's been no money. I'm
Yeah,
sitting on a
yeah.
couple of things. I've actually said no to quite a lot of stuff this year, and for the first time ever this year, finances have been so bad that some stuff that I'd said I would do, I've had to go back to the artist and say, listen, as much as I still want to do it, you could be waiting another year before I've got the money together. And
Right.
in that case, if you want to go somewhere else, that's fine.
Sure.
That's unfortunate, but.
But
You
you
know,
have kind of fermented a roster here as well, haven't you? You've got, you've got a certain number of groups that seem kind of aligned to what you're doing, who
yeah,
are
yeah.
part
There's
of
a few
the
people.
fabric. So,
Yeah. There's a few people. I mean, you mentioned Little Skull earlier. Dean
yeah,
lives not far from me. He lives in Hackney. I live in Islington, and so we're mates.
yeah, yeah.
And we met in Low Company, the record shop. Do you remember that?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
It was
Low.
Kieran
Oh,
Sunday who used to run
Blackest
Blackest Ever
Ever
Black.
Black. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Okay, so
He had a shop in Hackney Downs for. So it was one of those things. It was only there for 5 minutes, really, but it made quite a big impact. I think it was there for 2 years or maybe
I
three.
think you're right because he asked me to send him something related to Cut Hands or White House. I can't remember what now,
Oh
and
yeah,
I can't remember what it was he asked me to send. But he always promised to send me a lot of records in return, but it never happened. Probably for that same reason. I think
right. Yeah, yeah.
he used it as part of the decor or the display or something. But anyway, I am familiar with that label. But what's he doing there anyway, Kieran? Did he just disappear after that?
He's no, no. I think he tried to. I think he wanted to,
Oh,
but
right.
he's got a job. He's working
Oh,
in the industry, but I'm not going to
uh,
tell you. Not because I don't want to tell you, but because I don't know if he
no,
wants people
if
to
he'd
know
be, yeah,
that.
yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah,
fine.
you know.
Yeah, he always seemed nice
But
to me in his
he's
emails.
still around. But he
Yeah.
basically he's got a family and stuff,
Okay,
and
okay.
I think he just got to that point in his life.
Yeah, fine. He's probably
Yeah,
a bit younger than me, so
yeah.
yeah,
He's younger than us both. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I always forget you're in the same ballpark age wise.
Because I look
So
so young.
yeah, because you're so youthful.
Yeah. How are we doing for
um,
time then? Do you
right.
want to hang
Well,
up and
yeah.
call it?
Let's leave it here.
Go and
Same.
put the kettle on. I'll be back in
Yeah,
another five,
and I'll
ten
do the same.
minutes.
I'll go and make a nice brew,
Lovely.
and I'll be back. See you. Where were we before we were rudely interrupted by the time limit? We were
I don't know.
discussing. Well, okay, I know how to bring us back in. I want to go back to Central Bazaar. you work with a number of labels and artists that are in a similar boat to us. I know you've discussed Paradigm discs before. Obviously, I'm
Hmm.
very familiar
Yeah.
with Paradigm. Um, I don't know who else you work with. So, which other labels are you working with on Central Bazaar?
Faraway Press,
Okay.
Andrew Chalk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Yeah, oh God, good question. There's a young guy that runs a label called Infinite Expanse that's done
Okay.
a dozen or more releases in the last few years. He started off doing tapes, reissues of rare 80s tapes that he was doing on tapes. Now he's moved on to vinyl. He's doing contemporary stuff as well. He's
Okay.
had some amazing releases, Eastern European stuff, stuff from all around the world. And again, it goes from sort of noisy industrial, post-industrial stuff to sort of pastoral Polish folk from 10 years ago and
Okay.
all points in between, as they say.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's really good. Infinite Expanse is a great label.
Mm,
Young guy that runs a label has just started called The Hotel, Henry
okay.
Sire. He's done a solo LP and he's got a bunch of stuff that hasn't been announced yet, but he's got a few really interesting stuff. I think later this year and next year he's looking at getting some more bits out.
Okay.
Um, Jolly Discs, which is a label from sort of London that goes towards dance music
Okay.
and more abstract stuff.
Mm,
Off the top, Egoa, which is a Spanish, specifically Basque label, experimental music from the Basque country.
okay.
Um, what else we got? In my mind, I'm trying to go through the racks in my uh, office space. Yeah, there's Paradigm. Oh um, There's a label called Men's Scriffer or Men's Scrifer. He did
Right.
an amazing electronic LP by Zahir Ghulam Hussain a few months ago, which is sort of like Muslim gauze without the drum machines.
Oh, right.
That's a pretty good record.
Okay. Sounds quite eclectic
Yeah, I mean
anyway.
the best thing really is to sort of check the website out soon when
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
live, and
absolutely.
people can see everything that's there then.
Of course. So, yeah, obviously, I recommend that, and I'll be recommending it to everybody. But um, it's quite an eclectic mix, and I'm again thinking about a conversation we had a month, 5, 6 weeks ago, and you stated that you took a lot from these records as
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, this is like a huge source of inspiration for you with regards to Central Bazaar. So it's a broader spectrum than I thought, though. I mean, you're talking about dance music and some electronic music as well. Electronic dance. So
I know
I've,
dance music can be contentious for people our age. I know because there was that thing in the 80s, wasn't there? There was people who just couldn't handle drum machines or couldn't handle
oh no, that's not
anything
me.
related to
I
sort of
like a lot of
DJ
dance
culture.
stuff. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, no.
yeah,
I know we've had that chat, haven't we?
yeah,
But
yeah. We have, yeah,
I
yeah.
know that it's one of those things. It can still be a bit of a dividing line.
Mm,
I don't really get it. But then again, before I was listening to post-punk and things like that. I was listening to reggae and soul as a kid. That was around me a
okay.
lot, and I still really love a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yes, brilliant stuff. And that's another question I've got for you then. So, do you ever listen to the stuff you grew up with, and what do you listen to outside what you're doing with the label and Central Bazaar? Because this is something I'm at pains to sort of. Maybe I've said it in a few videos as well, but my tastes are pretty broad. So
Yeah,
they
me
go all
too.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah, Miles Davis. I can let you. But there was James Brown on the radio the other day. I said, "Oh, I like this." My wife, and I've even
yeah,
got a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
James Brown records, and my wife's, "Oh,
Me
this is
too.
disgusting."
Me too.
Yeah, So
Yeah.
you know,
No, I,
I'm
I love 60s soul.
yeah,
And
okay,
do you know Mississippi Records? They did these
yeah,
compilations
yeah,
like Pyramid Records, these double and
yeah,
triple LPs of Soul 45s. I
okay.
cane those things. I've got all of those. I love them. I
Oh,
play them
okay.
regularly. I listen to a lot of prog, um,
Who's your
which
favourite prog artist,
well, I like a lot of
if
the
there is
Italian
one?
stuff and
Oh,
Italian and
okay,
French.
okay.
You say, listen, that guy's just done there's a guy, you know, who's that American writer, Mark Masters? He
Oh
does a
yeah.
podcast or music book podcast, and he's got this guy on who's just done a book on French prog.
All right.
Um, so I'm tempted to get that, although maybe I sort of know most of the people in it anyway. But
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
Freeman
sure.
brothers did one, didn't
That's
they?
right. Yeah,
But
they
yeah,
did.
so
Yeah.
I like a lot of 70s
Okay.
stuff because that was the era where I those kind of formative years where you kind of your musical palette is sort of formed, but I was far too young to be listening to,
Yeah.
Magma or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
whereas now I can feel my boots on that stuff and
Oh
love
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's
So I
one of the
listen to a
good.
lot of prog, a lot of soul, bits of
Okay.
folk. Although I haven't been able to get too near to folk for a year or two. I think I've done that
Oh
to
right.
death, and I'll still listen to sort of punk records and things like that. But
Okay.
yeah, a lot, even sort of easy listening and things like that I can do.
Yeah, okay.
Just whatever I'm sort of in the mood for. Been listening to
Okay.
10cc lately.
Have you? It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm not kidding. Last week, I thought I probably need to explore more of their stuff because I'm not that familiar with it. But when I'm
Well,
driving, yeah,
go
go.
on.
But when
Well,
I'm driving,
the good. Well,
go on.
sorry, right,
You go,
you
you
go
go.
first.
No, when I'm driving, um, I listen to rock radio because I'm shit with technology and rigging up my Bluetooth and everything else. I don't listen to digital streaming or anything like that. My wife's the opposite. So I just turn on the radio and 10cc crop up and I think, eh, I also quite like Saxon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I know they're in a different area of music, um, but yeah, I've grown fond of different types of music. Well, I mean, I've always been interested in different types of music, as we just discussed. But 10cc last week, I heard something, and I thought, yeah, I need to check some more of their stuff out. I think they've been
It's
mentioned on
worth the
some
time.
podcasts. Yeah, okay.
I'd say so, yeah, and Godly and Cream as well. What I was going to say was the Godly and Cream. I got flashback on Essex Road. There's a Godly and Cream box set, and I got it for about a tenner.
All right.
Even though I had some of them on vinyl, but sometimes those CD box sets are just dead handy when you're sort of working or cooking or whatever, and
Yeah, yeah.
you can put it on zero effort, and it just does its thing. And there's the Consequences box set that they did, sort of bit
Okay.
conceptual, bit experimental. It's worth it. I
Okay.
think you can probably pick that up quite cheap.
Okay.
So, and again, yeah, I think Godly and Cream are wonderful.
Okay. So anyway, it's clear that you're very open to lots of different music. Is there anything you don't
Yeah,
like?
yeah. Yeah, I've never
I mean,
really been able to do any type of metal. Um, you know, rocky metal stuff. I've never really
yeah,
got
yeah.
that into that sort of stuff. I can just about do some sort of hard rock and a few riffs, but no, I've always had a bit of a block around that stuff, and I hate
Okay.
drum and bass.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
I
went through a
can't just can't
phase of
do that
dabbling with
rhythm.
it, but oh, okay. I used to go clubbing in London. I went to a few D&B clubs. Oh God, no, you can't move to it at all.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, for me, there was the what was that Labyrinth? What was that place? Four Aces in Dalston.
oh yeah.
They used to do a lot of sort of house and early rave type sort of nights over there. And I remember there was these guys that ran a label called Shut Up and Dance, and they sort of were really big locally when they first started. Justifiably so. They had a couple of like they sampled Suzanne Vega, and
Oh yeah.
they had this very West Indian sort of influence on dance music at that time. It was really good. It was really fresh, but very quickly you could see that they were really getting into this sort of breakbeaty type stuff. And I remember at that time thinking, oh yeah, there's like a bit of a fork in the road, and I'm not really interested in the breakbeat side of things.
Oh
I'm more
okay.
interested in the other side of things, and that kind of, to my mind anyway, that kind of morphed into the drum and bass stuff. And I remember going to that place in Hoxton. It used to be called the Bass Clef, but then it
Oh, I don't.
changed
I
its
wouldn't
name to
know.
something else. Goldie was involved. I remember going there one night. A mate of mine took me there, and I didn't know how to dance to it. Just couldn't get into it. I've never been able to get into that stuff. So it's not that I hate it or whatever or resent anyone else. I'm not going to write an
No,
essay about it, but I just never been able to get my ears around any form of heavy metal or drum and bass.
similar to me. Yeah, as I said, there's a Saxon song I've heard on the car radio. And I thought, I was quite surprised, that I found myself enjoying it. I think it's called
Yeah, I
Never
mean, there's still
Surrendering.
time. I could, in 6 months' time, I might be telling you how into Photech I am or something like that.
Yeah,
It's possible,
yeah,
you know.
Spring Hill Jack or whatever. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, well, funny enough, I know them, but
oh, do you? Okay.
I remember for years kicking against Neil Young, fucking whining, blah 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 blah, and
Oh,
then
right.
almost overnight, I can remember someone was insistent on playing Neil Young records at me. And
Ah,
yeah, I had that day where the penny dropped, and
yeah. Well,
I got it.
yeah. I've got the Shadow Ring lot to to blame for my Neil Young habit. Between them and Stefan Yavorgin, in the
Oh yeah, yeah,
'90s, I used to be quite good friends with him. Yeah, I was exposed to or introduced to Neil Young's work at Coombe House in Folkestone with the Shadow Ring lot. But we were partaking in various things, and it all kind of made sense late, at 2 a.m. or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Of
Um,
course, yeah,
and then between that and Stefan doing his scum list, did you ever get the scum list?
yeah. I remember
Yeah,
them. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because I used to print them for Stefan, and I
Oh, did you?
yeah, yeah, and he would always give me a load of credit in return. So
Right,
I would always
right,
take a few records, and I'd start exploring Neil Young, because he'd always have a few
right.
Neil Young records on his scum list, and
I
really
think I
cheap as
think they'd
well.
be nice put together in a little book or zine or something, because it could be quite scathing about the stuff he was selling, and I kind of miss that attitude that
Yeah,
everyone's too nice these days, aren't they?
that's
Everyone's saying how
true.
wonderful everything is. No
Yeah,
one's sort of saying about old fat German men, artists or things like that he used to write. That those bits sort of stuck in my mind a bit, and I miss that.
oh, I totally miss it as well, and I guess I was guilty of it as well with grim humour. But I had a bit of a reputation for speaking my mind and trashing people's work, and not only that, and maybe I've said this to you before. I used to get sent shitloads of stuff every week, records,
Right? Yeah,
cassettes,
yeah.
and I used to do this way before I became an English teacher. But I would go through the press notes and with a red pen like a teacher, correcting all the grammar errors, and then I'd sometimes stood on the cassette and just wrote at the top of the press sheet, you know, don't give up the day job or whatever, and just sent
Right.
everything back. And I'm ashamed of it now. I mean, it's awful. It's a terrible thing to do. I did it about 3 times. I think I broke somebody's 7 inch once and sent it back to them as well. And now I just
Wow.
think, oh my god, what was I like? The arrogance of my younger self.
Well, I think you're allowed it when you're younger, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, I do still write reviews, and I'm always mindful of the fact I'm also fairly pleasant these days, and I just think you change as you get older, and
Well, I think if maybe it's rose tinted glasses on my part, but as I remember some of Stefan's stuff, I mean, not just Stefan, but he would be actively telling you that this was a good record, but at the same time telling you that it was telling you what was wrong with it as well.
it's kind of double edged. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. It
it's
wasn't
totally
just nasty for the sake of it.
no, that's true. It always reminded me of. Do you remember Force Exposure? And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kind of reviews you would get in
yeah, yeah,
Force Exposure zine. Some of them are horrendous as well. So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, I also hanker for those times. But anyway, let's get back to the present. We've been speaking about Central Bazaar, your distribution service and mail order. That will be up and running in a couple of weeks. This will be going out before that, but as I said, I mean, you're carrying three of my titles, I
Yeah, I've
think.
got some of your titles, and there's a
Yeah,
whole load of stuff that's not. I mean, I think as of today, there's about 300 titles on there, but there's there's another 100 or 2 to go on that will go on
Right.
gradually over the next few weeks. I just can't.
Okay.
I'm doing it on my own, and there's only X amount of hours, and blah blah blah. So, for anyone who goes and has a sniff around the day that they see this, for example, it's worth going back a few days later or a week later or whatever, because there will be some new stuff and some new old stuff going up on there as well.
Okay. So every week there will be some new additions, new arrivals.
Yeah.
So once
Yeah.
the
Oh, and there's
website.
going to be digitals as well. I'm selling digitals as well.
Oh, okay.
Just
Right.
because, I mean, I'm not a web designer. I'm not particularly comfortable with technology, but I've sort of been learning. I've had someone helping me, and I've been learning stuff as I've been going along. And I thought, as I was going to do it, I thought I may as well do it properly. So I've tried to make it look and work, like a proper website. And I know a lot of people are kind of pissed off with Bandcamp. You don't do Bandcamp, do you?
No, no, I don't. Because I always think all the artists seem to just do their own, and therefore they
Mm.
upload their. I don't own the
Yeah, fair
rights to their
enough.
releases,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I just do a physical, and I see that as my role, and then I think Bandcamp for them directly is a way for them to generate some revenue. So
Yeah, yeah.
not
No, that's
not
fair
much.
enough.
Um,
But I know a lot of people are unhappy with that as well, for various reasons that I agree with. So I saw the opportunity to be able to sell digitals, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll give it a try. It
okay,
might work. So I'm trying to undercut wherever possible.
all
I
right,
mean, again,
okay.
it's a negotiation with the label, and I'm not a charity. I'm not doing it for nothing. But
No, no, no.
we'll see. I thought to myself, I'll give it a year,
Yeah,
see how well it works, or if it fails, at least I know I've tried my best, and I'll
absolutely.
go and get a job in B&Q.
Jeez, don't say that. Don't say that.
If they'll have me.
Yeah, shelf stacking. Yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously we've touched on a couple of times now, and again in recent conversations about the crap that small labels and this kind of music faces. It's not exclusive to this kind of music or this world we're in. It's right across the board. But do you think we'll? I mean, I'm still hopeful we'll get through this, somehow.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm
do,
not giving up hope.
no, okay. So you're still optimistic, or is that too
Yeah.
strong?
Yeah, I mean, optimism just looks a bit different when you're over 50, I think, doesn't it? You don't,
Yeah,
you're not
not
quite
sure
as
I'll wake up the
excitable.
next
Yeah,
day.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, this is optimism.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think, it's all right. It'll be, for fuck's sake, look, we could live in fucking Gaza, or
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's a problem, but we're not about to die because of not being able to sell records.
No.
So yeah, it's a problem. I want to be able to sit it out. I want to be able to come out the other side of it. I'd love to think that between us we can come up with some ideas. I love the romantic idea that we could work together as a bit of a community and try and help each other out. I'm still
Well, wasn't that always
unfortunately
part
kind
of it
of.
anyway? I mean, yeah, you're kind of romantic in that respect. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, I am. I mean, that was part of what sold me on this
yeah,
music and this kind of culture anyway,
yeah.
I remember going in Houseman's as a kid to get a crash badge and having a copy of Mutual Aid thrust upon me by Malcolm Hopkins,
Mm,
who, and it was a bit of a life changer. And,
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, so I do still, one foot in the real 21st century world entirely, but I do believe that the way through this isn't by all of us just sitting in staring at screens and doing our own thing in isolation. I think we should come together a bit more and work together a bit more. And if we're willing to make certain sacrifices, maybe we can, we're in with a chance.
Okay, so that brings me on to another question then. Have you encountered any arseholes in it? Because I think there are plenty of people guilty of that in
Yeah.
this world. I think there are people running labels, small labels and whatever that just have a shit attitude
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
don't possess that and have this kind of aloof, snobby. Because although arguably you could say we work with some music that might be considered thus, from time to time. But I'm definitely not a snob, and I can see you're not, and just based on what you're saying as well. But I've certainly encountered a lot of that, this kind of aloofness that you get
Yeah, yeah,
emanating from certain people involved in all this. I find that a real pisser,
yeah.
and
It's a turn off, isn't it?
yeah. But you've encountered some
Again,
of that as well.
yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you're never going to get on with everyone, and some of maybe some of it is it comes across in a way that might not necessarily be true. That some people might be thinking that they're acting in good faith, but it comes across to someone else as something different. I don't know, but at the same time, yeah, I'll call it out. As I've said to you, look, I mean, the most incriminating thing you're going to get me to say is as I said to you earlier, Central Bazaar is owed a lot of money, and some of those people are genuinely decent people like me who are just fucking struggling and can't pay their bills, and they will tell me that. Some of the others are people who take the piss and they
yeah,
take,
yeah.
take, take, and they don't reply to any of my emails for
But
a
this is
year
what
when
I
they owe
wanted to
me
get
money.
at. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
and
think
then when they see that there's a release that they want to stock or a release that they want some of, they think nothing of messaging me and saying, "Oh, can I have 20 of them?" And
yeah,
no, the answer's fuck off.
yeah, absolutely. No, communication's imperative, and I think it directly relates to what you just hinted at, the idea of this kind of DIY culture that we were so inspired by. I mean, it was fanzines, small labels, cassette labels. I mean, I loved all of that, and it was always about um, trying to meet like-minded people, or at least that was partly what it was about for me.
Mm,
Meeting people who've got similar, again, sensibilities, you've
yeah,
got similar interests, and that's how it started. And I've still got a lot of that in what I'm doing now, and I can see you have as well. But I
yeah,
think,
absolutely. Yeah. But I
yeah,
don't want to. Sorry to interrupt. I mean,
yeah, go on.
I agree with everything you're saying. I don't want to get too overly sentimental about this sort of stuff. Yeah, and when you were saying that, it reminded me of Ed Baxter that used to run the LMC and was one of the founders of Resonance.
Yeah,
Around that time that Resonance was starting, around the Millennium time, he did these because he was a promoter as well, and he did this series of concerts, Japanorama. Do you remember that?
no,
Um,
no.
Otomo Yoshihide, Sachiko M.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
And I mean,
Yeah,
he got loads of Arts Council funding, which I know people have opinions about, me included. But
yeah, yeah,
basically, turn of the century, he brought these experimental Japanese musicians over. And when I say experimental, I mean, there was Taku Sugimoto who would come on and in 35 minutes play one and a half fucking notes on the guitar once. And, total silence or no input. Toshi Nakamura, sort of no input, noisy, feedbacky stuff, and proper no tunes or melodies or anything like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And he did, I think he did 8 or 9 dates around the UK. One of them being the Royal Festival Hall, and they fucking sold out. And he would put on a night in Wales and Newcastle and fill pretty big venues. And he was
Mm,
getting write-ups in the Guardian and all that kind of stuff.
wow.
And I remember him saying, that this music is only underground because people aren't investing in it. People don't, apply the same methods to it as they do a lot of other music. And it was a bit of a switch for me, that comment. And I do, whenever the sort of feeling of selling out or whatever comes to mind, I do sort of think back to that and think, well, is it really selling out? If I really love Idea Fire Company, which I do,
Mm,
would I like them to earn some money to get a paid fucking
Uh, uh,
European tour? And
uh,
of course I would, you
yeah,
know. And
yeah,
if I could help that and earn a few bob and pay my own bills, I mean, I live in a council flat. I don't, you know, there's no greed or anything involved in it. You know,
no,
I think
no,
it's quite sincere and genuine. And if I'd love Idea Fire Company to sell out the
of
Royal Festival
course, yeah,
Hall,
yeah, absolutely,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and
I've
have an
always
article in the
subscribed to that.
Guardian.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, as much as I do love the idea of the DIY and all the rest of it, that's more out of necessity than, you know, I'm not some rich kid who gets off on the idea that, you know, that you can just do it in your bedroom and that somehow is romantic just on its own. No, it's out of necessity and
Yeah,
yeah, you know.
absolutely. I do go along with that as well. You know, I've always wanted every artist I've worked with to go, um, to go as far as possible. You know, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't want that. You know, so
Yeah, me too.
um, but I do think a lot of artists don't really help themselves. Having said that, um, but I've just been given another warning, and I think
All right.
so. We're looking towards the end of this. I think it's been great chatting with you about Horn of Plenty
Yeah,
and
I've enjoyed
Central
it.
Bazaar, and I really
Yeah.
hope, with all with all my heart, that maybe a few more people will come to Central Bazaar after seeing
I
this
hope so
chat once
too.
it's uploaded, and they'll come to Horn of Plenty. So I've got one last question before we completely finish, and that is what's next for Horn of Plenty?
Yeah,
Have
so
you?
as I said, I've released nothing this year so far, and
Mm,
that's been because of money. I've been sitting on another Idea Fire Company LP, and that is hopefully going into production very soon. So that might just about be out by the end of this year.
mm,
Um, and there's going to be another Germ Lattice release as well.
okay.
And then we'll see next year. Germ Lattice, I don't know if I can. I was going to say something, but I don't know if it's been announced, so maybe I can't say
Okay.
that yet.
All
And
right.
again, I don't want to sound more important than I am, but I just don't want to upset anyone by saying something that
Yeah, I
shouldn't be
understand.
said. But so hopefully, yeah, there'll be a Germ Lattice thing and an Idea Fire Company LP in the next 3 to 5 months, hopefully.
Okay, and there is another. There are just quickly another couple of things. You've got your logo, and I remember in our quick chat
Mhm.
in the intermission, you said you'd like to talk about that. So explain the logo and what's
Yeah,
behind it.
one of the things when I started the label was, you know, what do I want, what don't I want? And initially I thought, no, I don't want a logo. And then things like Bandcamp almost force you to have a logo, you know, these
Okay.
templates. So what I deliberately did was kind of came up with 5 or 6 logos that were completely different. You know, one was very sort of black and white Xerox looking, one was very pastoral looking that had mushrooms on it. Because Horn of Plenty means cornucopia,
Yeah,
and
yeah, of
that
course.
actually came from a Mudguards project that was never fully realised. So yeah, it had all these connotations, and so I sort of dug into all the connotations, came up with lots of different logos. And I used to, if anyone bought anything from me on Bandcamp for a few years, they'd get a little postcard with one of these logos on it. And I did a few
Okay.
tote bags and things like that. So anything that could possibly look like a Horn of Plenty logo, I kind of used it in a very small run or used it online for a few minutes, and then I would quickly change to something completely different. So that was just one of those little sort of things, you know. And
Okay.
yeah, I like the idea of just not having a logo.
All
And with Central
right.
Bazaar, I've done that. There's no logo, you know,
No, I
because
noticed that.
and again, I suppose it could be maybe slightly too earnest, but I always thought that the label shouldn't be bigger than the material on it, you know.
Okay.
So I didn't want the label's logo to sort of
What, like
outshine the
dominate?
artwork of the
All
record.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, fair
yeah.
enough. So I always insist on my logo going on,
That's
but
fine.
yeah,
I know lots of people that do, and I don't have a problem with that. I just sort of, you know, when you're starting a project, you sort of think, well, what do I want to do here? What do I want to say? And that was one of the things
okay,
right from the word go, you know.
yeah, okay. Another thing, just I think we've got a few minutes. You've never done a CD release, have you? To my knowledge,
No,
it's
no.
all vinyl and digital.
yeah, I've done a few tapes. Don't know how many, maybe
Oh,
half a
and
dozen, maybe
cassettes. Yeah,
five.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'd never
But
do a
I
CD.
wouldn't rule it out. I would do a CD. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I've just
okay.
never, nothing's really landed that has made me think, yeah, this needs to be on a CD.
Oh,
As I
okay.
said earlier, I listen to quite a lot of CDs when I'm at home, when I'm working. It's more practical than turning a record over every 15,
Yeah,
20
yeah,
minutes, you know.
yeah,
Um, and I can, I've got quite a lot of CDs and they take up, that much space sort of thing,
yeah.
a bit like what's
But yeah,
behind you
yeah,
now, and then
yeah.
the next wall is three times as big, full of records, and it takes me sometimes 3 or 4 weeks to find something,
Oh,
so
right. Oh, okay.
so it's just practical. I do like a CD. I
Yeah.
don't like them as much as records, but maybe I'll do a CD box set of something sometime,
Okay. So
I don't
watch
know.
this space. So anyway, I think yeah. On
Yeah, yeah.
that, yeah. Again, thanks a lot for your time. Enjoy the rest of your trip in
Oh, thank
Copenhagen,
you.
and we'll be in touch again
Hmm.
soon, I'm sure.